A cold evening breeze swept through the city as people hurried past a glittering restaurant, its golden lights spilling onto the street. Inside, a wealthy businessman sat at the patio table, savoring his expensive dinner, barely noticing the world outside. Just a few steps away, a young woman stood uncertainly. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled, and her face pale with hunger. Yet, in her tired eyes lingered a quiet strength, a dignity that hardship had not stolen. With trembling hands, she gathered the courage to step closer. Her heart pounded, shame and desperation battling within her. Finally, she whispered, almost afraid of her own voice, "May I have your leftovers, sir?" For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The clinking of glasses, the chatter of diners, even the soft music playing in the background, all faded into silence. The businessman looked up, startled. He had been asked for donations before, but never like this. There was no begging, no demand, only a simple plea wrapped in humility. He met her eyes, and something stirred inside him. In that gaze, he saw hunger, but also courage. He saw pain, but also hope. And for the first time in a long while, his heart felt heavy. She expected rejection, perhaps even harsh words, but instead, he set his fork down slowly. His eyes did not look at her with pity, but with curiosity and compassion. That single question, so quietly spoken, had pierced through the walls he had built around himself. At that table, under the soft glow of restaurant lights, a simple request for scraps was about to turn into something far greater, a moment that neither of them would ever forget. It was the beginning of an unexpected miracle. For a man who had built his life on speed, decisions, and control, the millionaire found himself strangely unable to move. Normally, he would have waved off such an interruption with irritation, dismissing it as just another nuisance in his carefully guarded world. But this time, something was different. The girl's words were soft, almost fragile, yet they carried a weight he could not ignore. Her eyes held no manipulation, no schemes, only a raw honesty that cut straight through his armor. He froze, fork suspended in midair, staring at her as though she had unlocked a door he had long kept sealed. Around him, the city carried on as usual, waiters rushed with trays, laughter spilled from nearby tables, cars honked faintly beyond the glass. Yet all of it seemed to blur into the background, like distant noise in a dream. For the first time in years, the sound of his own heartbeat was louder than the world outside. The girl shifted nervously under his gaze, expecting rejection, maybe even scorn. She lowered her eyes, bracing for the sting of dismissal. But the harsh words never came. Instead, he slowly set his fork down, resting his hands on the table as if grounding himself. He studied her face, every shadow, every line of fatigue, every flicker of courage that still lingered in her expression. It was in that silence, heavy, charged, and strangely tender, that he felt a realization stir within him. This was not just a stranger interrupting his dinner. This was a moment, a choice, perhaps even a chance for redemption. And as he held her gaze, the thought refused to leave him, maybe, just maybe, his wealth could serve a purpose far greater than himself. For a long second, the young woman stood frozen, unsure whether she had heard him correctly. She had expected a bag of scraps, maybe a hurried dismissal, but never this. The millionaire leaned back slightly, his tone calm yet filled with a warmth she hadn't known in years. "Come, sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Her lips parted in shock, her eyes darting around as if to confirm he wasn't mocking her. Slowly, almost unwilling to believe, she took a hesitant step forward. The waiters, trained to move quickly, rushed to clear the table and set a fresh plate before her, filling it with steaming food that smelled of comfort and abundance. The aroma alone made her chest tighten, a reminder of days long gone when meals were shared with family, before life had broken her path. Around them, the restaurant buzzed with whispers. Some diners frowned in disapproval, others stared in disbelief. A few even shook their heads, wondering why a man of such status would lower himself to dine with someone from the streets. But the millionaire ignored every glance, every murmur. His focus never left the young woman, whose trembling hands now hovered over the plate as though she feared it might vanish at any moment. Seeing her hesitation, he offered a reassuring smile and said softly, "No one deserves leftovers when they are starving." The word struck her like lightning, simple, yet carrying a truth she had almost forgotten: her life, her dignity, still mattered. Tears welled in her eyes as she picked up the fork, her voice breaking with a whispered, "Thank you." And as she took her first bite, the clamor of the world around them faded, leaving only the quiet power of compassion shared between two strangers. Between hesitant bites, the young woman began to speak, her voice low and unsteady, as though each word carried the weight of her past. She told him how once, not long ago, she had been a top student with dreams as bright as the morning sun. Medicine had been her passion, she longed to become a doctor, to heal those who suffered the way her mother once had. But life had been cruel. After losing her family, financial burdens crushed her dreams, and one setback after another pushed her onto the streets. "I never wanted this life," she whispered, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "I just wanted a chance." The millionaire listened in silence, his chest tightening with every word. Her story struck chords he thought were long buried. His own daughter, gone too soon to illness, had once carried the very same dream. She, too, had spoken of healing others, of dedicating her life to saving lives. He remembered her laughter, her notebooks filled with scribbled anatomy sketches, the sparkle in her eyes when she spoke of becoming a doctor. That light had been extinguished before its time, leaving him hollow despite all his wealth. Now, sitting across from him, this young woman's face seemed to echo his daughter's determination, her pain mirroring his own loss. His eyes glistened as he felt something shift deep within him, a connection that went beyond coincidence. It was as though fate itself had brought her to his table, as if the universe was whispering that he had been given a second chance to honor his daughter's dream through this stranger. In that moment, his heart knew with certainty, this meeting was no accident. This was purpose, wrapped in the form of a hungry young woman asking only for scraps. The silence between them stretched, not heavy, but filled with unspoken understanding. The millionaire leaned forward, his voice steady yet touched with emotion. "You don't belong on the streets," he said gently. "Dreams like yours should not be buried by hardship. If you're willing, I will sponsor your education. You will finish what you started, you will become the doctor you were meant to be." The young woman froze, fork slipping from her trembling hand. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. But the sincerity in his eyes left no room for doubt. Her lips quivered as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. For years, she had lived as though she were invisible, a shadow moving through the world unnoticed. And now, for the first time, someone not only saw her, but believed in her. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing softly, overwhelmed by a mix of relief, gratitude, and hope she had nearly forgotten existed. When she finally managed to speak, her voice was broken but full of life. "Thank you, you've given me back my future." As she rose to leave, clutching the promise of a new beginning, her steps were lighter than they had been in years. She walked away not as a beggar, but as a young woman reborn with purpose. The city lights shimmered around her like stars guiding her path. The millionaire remained seated, watching her silhouette disappear into the night. A soft smile touched his face, tears shining in his eyes. In helping her, he felt his daughter's spirit alive again, as though a piece of her dream had been restored. He realized that this was not charity, it was healing. And in that moment, he knew, two lives had been changed forever. In the end, what began as a simple plea for leftovers became a life-changing encounter. A hungry girl, carrying the weight of broken dreams, crossed paths with a man whose heart had long been shielded by wealth and loss. Through a single act of compassion, he not only gave her food but restored her dignity, her hope, and her future. And in return, she gave him something he thought he had lost forever, a sense of purpose and the chance to honor his daughter's dream. Their meeting was no accident, it was a reminder that kindness has the power to heal wounds seen and unseen. Sometimes, the smallest request can open the door to the greatest miracle, proving that when we choose empathy over indifference, we don't just change one life, we change two.